I voted for this file because when the EU delegation goes to the UN Commission on the Status of Women in March, I want them to raise a few priorities. Priorities like war and its effect on women. How about the women in Gaza, where women and children make up 70% of its victims? No doctor, no midwife, no nurse to support women during labour, no pain medication, no anaesthesia. Women have to soak up and use tent scraps to soak up their postpartum bleeding. 2 mothers killed by Israel every hour. Tens of thousands of babies and children without their mothers' warm arms to hold them. Thousands have been left to scream and cry while they watch their mothers die in front of them. Women crushed by the most unimaginable grief without a moment to recover, watching their children starve. But for the cruise missile feminists in here, there seems to be no fellow feeling. They want the atrocities to continue. That's not feminism. It's an abomination. I don't know if God will forgive them, but I and millions of others certainly won't.
Lula, the president of Brazil, compared Israel's brutal genocidal campaign in Gaza to the Nazis in Germany. Lula explained how Israel is committing their own Holocaust in Gaza, which is plain for everyone with 2 eyes to see. Despite Lula saying what literally everyone can see, Israel is not taking his comments well. In response, Israel declared that Lula is persona non grata because he called them out for their genocide. Zionists have been melting down and demanding that Lula make an apology for comparing them to Nazis in Germany. So Lula in Brazil proceeded to double down and tell Israel to fuck off, severing diplomatic ties with Israel. Now we have South American leaders like Evo Morales and Nicolas Maduro that are rallying to Lula's side, where they essentially say, yeah, Lula's right, you guys are Nazi scum. I don't know, Israel, maybe if you don't want to be compared to Nazis, you don't kill children and civilians at the rate that was killed in Auschwitz. Lula is far from perfect, but this is exactly why it was a great thing that he defeated that Zionist puppet, Bolsonaro. Lula has been a menace to the Biden administration from day one. Lula criticized the Biden administration, Zelensky, and NATO for blocking peace in Ukraine. He also called out the Biden persecution of Julian Assange, called for lifting the Cuban embargo, and now standing against the United States and Israel against their genocide. The true modern axis of evil is the United States, UK, and Israel, and they are becoming more isolated every single day.
What's poppin'? What's poppin', my people? Welcome to another edition of Nick and Night. We got another banger prepared for you guys today. I got my great friend, Robert Durden, who will be joining us here very soon. But as I said in the video, this is exactly why it was good that we didn't have that Zionist puppet Bolsonaro win in Brazil. And Lula essentially told the truth and united Latin America against Israel. We're also going to cover the UN Security Council vote. You know, the vote where the United States was once again the only country that voted against a ceasefire. You also had the UK that voted to abstain. Everyone else voted for a ceasefire. It's the United States that continued to enable this terrorist criminal regime. Do you guys want to know who supported a ceasefire? China. Russia supported a ceasefire. So Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are world leaders that are against killing children in Gaza. People have been brainwashed into hating the wrong people. Like someone else who people have been brainwashed to hate is Nicolas Maduro, who Bernie Sanders called a tyrant. Because, you know, Bernie is so tough on authoritarianism that he voted for Jim Crow Joe. That's how tough Bernie Sanders is. But Bernie Sanders is going to write a eulogy about Alexei Navalny, the white supremacist scum. But you think Nicolas Maduro is a tyrant because Nicolas Maduro went after people who tried to kill him, the president. But Bernie Sanders supports, and Dr. Cornel West supports, locking up a bunch of drunk rednecks who showed up at the Capitol with no guns. So it's okay to lock up the deeply unserious January 6th protesters, but if you go after the opposition party that sided with a hostile foreign agency like the CIA, all of a sudden you're good. If you're wrong if you go after those people. You got to notice how they always side with that Dr. Cornel West side with Alexei Navalny, who was propped up by the CIA, and he calls him a freedom fighter. The same way that Bernie Sanders and AOC supported the opposition against Maduro, who was backed up by the CIA, and they called him an authoritarian thug because they didn't allow the CIA to violently overthrow their country. Because Nicolas Maduro resists U.S. sanctions. That's why we are supposed to hate him, apparently. Bernie thinks he's a thug, though. Bernie thinks he's a tyrant. Meanwhile, Nicolas Maduro is speaking out against the genocide. Bernie Sanders is not. Bernie Sanders can't even call it a genocide. What's up, Rob? I see you in the background. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready, brother. I'll bring you up here very soon. This is... Actually, I should show you the video first. I'm going to show the Lula video, and I'm going to bring you in, Robert, to get your thoughts on Lula as well. And just a statement overall. This is the Brazilian president, Lula, comparing the IDF to Nazis and saying that Israel is committing the Holocaust. You know, what we can see with our two eyes.
O que está acontecendo na faixa de Gaza com o povo palestino não existe nenhum outro momento.
He said what has happened to the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian people does not exist in any historical moment. And do not get twisted. He is 100% right.
Histórico. Aliás, existiu quando Hitler resolveu matar os judeus. Sabe o que está acontecendo na faixa de Gaza com o povo palestino? Não existe nenhum outro momento histórico.
So that's
Aliás, existiu quando Hitler resolveu matar os judeus.
So of course, when Lula said this, Israel was not happy about it. Lula was very honest about what's going on in Gaza, and of course, Zionists are allergic to honesty, like a vampire's sunlight. You know what I mean? Israel declares Brazil Lula persona non grata for comparing Gaza war to Holocaust. How dare him call out the fact that we killed thousands of children? Like, did Israel really believe that they can just kill thousands of children? Thousands of civilians at the rate that we have never seen before? Let me pull my video up because I'm struggling to find this damn image. I might have to email it back to myself. Yeah, I'm gonna email myself this image. Let me go back to my hotspot video because I put up the numbers. For other morons, be like, oh, it's not a genocide. There's still people left. You're supposed to call out a genocide before it's done, you idiots. It's a genocide because the rate of the killing is at the same level of every single genocide. I'm sorry I do it this way. I'm trying to find that picture I pulled up. I can't find it. You guys see this? Why can't I find it right now? I should have saved it. But when you look at October and November, you had 178 children that was being killed per day in Gaza. That's way more than was in Auschwitz, which was a disaster and tragedy. But that was over a period of 5 years. So the people who say there's no genocide in Gaza are complicit for one, evil for two, youthful idiots to the Zionist regime, and traitors to our country. Like, I view every Zionist as traitors to our country. They support a military campaign that is more deadly than Auschwitz. We not even a half a year into the campaign, and people are like, oh, well, you know, there's still hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. They are on the brink of starvation. They're on the brink of starvation. Many more we can't find. And they're going to continue this campaign until they're all dead. You have U.S. Congress people openly saying that's the agenda. Let me, did I have this up? I don't know if I had the right one up. I'll share this one. Sorry, I didn't have this up. This is what I was reading, by the way. You guys see that? I can't find the image for some fucking reason, man. I got emailed to myself. I got saved on my phone. But you guys see 178 children killed per day in Gaza, 127 kids killed per day in Auschwitz. So if you're Lula and you're making that comparison, you're 100% on the money. But before I continue, I want to bring my guest in. My good friend, Robert Durden, had joined us tonight. It's been too long, my friend. Welcome
again. Thanks for having me, man.
Yep. So I want to give you a response to what Lula said. In general, Israel's response to the ICJ calling South Africa Hamas. Now Lula persona non grata. The UN is Hamas. Essentially, anyone who shows sympathy for Palestinian people are Hamas. How can anyone take these people seriously, Robert?
Well, that's the question. I don't think anybody does take them seriously. I think they're in their own tiny little 5% echo chamber, these, hoity-toity Zionists and shit-lib elites that basically echo all this stuff back to each other. But I mean, no, I don't think anybody actually does take them seriously. And you made a perfectly valid point. In Auschwitz, 127 kids died daily, 5 straight years. No one's downplaying how horrible that is, but statistically speaking, they've killed more kids daily than died in Auschwitz. They've also killed numerous, I think over 110 journalists, hundreds of UN workers.
Can you imagine if Hamas did that?
Yeah, no, I mean, no, they would actually have a valid reason to do what they're doing if Hamas were doing to Israel what Israel is actually doing to the Palestinians right now. I've often said that if Hamas were doing to Israel what Israel is doing to Hamas, Israel would just nuke Gaza. I mean,
yes.
That's what they would. If let's say if Russia were doing to the Ukrainians what the Israelis are doing to the Gazans right now, we would nuke Russia. So I mean, it is a fair comparison, and I think it's a fair comparison to compare them to Nazis as well, because Zionism is inherently a supremacy-based ideology, and they did a bunch of bullshit trickery, trying their best to equate Judaism with Zionism, because they're doing their best. The ADL, like Jonathan Greenblatt and all the Zionists behind the scenes, are doing their best to equate those two things falsely, because they want to use Jewish people as a human shield for their very Nazi-like actions in Gaza right now, because they want everyone to believe that what they're doing is actually just Judaism. It's not supremacy at all. It's not us trying to do ethnic cleansing, when clearly Zionism and Judaism are not the same thing. And is there anything that you can think of that is more, detrimental to actual Jews, like what something a Nazi would do, than equating those two things and putting all Jews on earth who are not in fact Zionists at risk? I can't.
Absolutely. That's why the people who actually fight against anti-Semitism the most are the leftists and the anti-imperialists who call out Israel. Not only because we stand up for the Palestinian Semitic people, because we are actually setting the record straight that most Jewish people aren't bloodthirsty monsters like Zionists. Zionists are the most anti-Semitic people, including the fact that most Zionists in the United States are evangelical Christians. So think about it for a second. You have evangelical Christians who spend their time calling Orthodox Jews and other Jewish people, anti-war Jewish people who are opposed to the state of Israel. Evangelical Christians will look those Jewish people in the face and say that they're fake Jews and that they're anti-Semitic. What's more anti-Semitic than that, Robert?
Yeah, I don't know. Did you
tell Jews that they're fake Jews because they don't support a state? But go ahead, Robert.
Right. A wild interview just happened where Smooly Boteach went up against Norman Finkelstein. And I haven't seen the whole interview, but there's a clip that dropped, and it was interesting to see. Norm Finkelstein makes the point when he's talking about October 7th. Piers Morgan is moderating in this interview or this debate. And Norm says, listen, isn't it a natural reaction if you're going to put a bunch of people inside of what is an open-air prison or a concentration camp for their entire lives? And many of these people are young people. They've never been outside Gaza. They're not allowed to leave. They're stuck there. It's, for all intents and purposes, a concentration camp. Isn't it a natural reaction for them to start creating rebel groups and to try to escape?
Exactly.
And immediately Botich goes fucking apeshit and just calls Norm Finkelstein a Holocaust denier. I'm not kidding you. So I mean,
Is this recent?
yeah,
I haven't seen
today. It just dropped
Oh
today.
shit! I haven't seen that.
Oh,
haven't
you got to
seen
see
that.
it. I don't think the whole. I'm not sure the entire interview's up yet, but that clip has gone viral, and Shmuley is clearly out of his mind, and Norm is
Oh, so
completely
wait,
cool as cute.
Shmuley it went with again. Oh shit, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Okay,
and Piers Morgan's show, and it was so
Oh,
bad,
shit.
man. It was funny.
Hold on, we
Just
gotta find that. Hold on,
yeah,
we gotta
see if
do a
you can
live.
find
We
it.
gotta do a live segment on that. What? After
Dude,
the
he went
Lula
off
segment,
the
I might have to
rails so
find
hard.
that, dude. What? Hold up, we might have to change this whole damn show. Hold up.
So anyway, no, but my
like,
point is that he calls Norm Finkelstein a Holocaust denier for simply asking the question, isn't it a natural reaction? Aren't you setting the parameters for resistance groups and rebel groups to be created when you create those conditions, when you're killing people, sniping journalists like Shireen Abu Akleh, shooting protesters during the March of Return, and they're having a contest. The Israeli snipers are having a contest to see who can shoot out the most kneecaps. You're doing this to children and people that will inevitably become Hamas, and then you're surprised when there's like a jailbreak or a resistance group that forms inside said prison camp. That's a natural reaction, and I like Norm's question, and it was crazy that Smuley went right off the rails on that one.
Oh shit, bro.
Yeah,
All right,
Smuley, after he was done with the interview, before the interview dropped, he came out and started talking shit and got ratioed immediately. And then
wow,
then the clip dropped later.
I was off Twitter a lot of today. So then Piers went after Smuley. What is going on? So this is kind of going in the opposite order, and I want to go back to Lula here very soon, but he said he completely destroyed Norman Finkelstein, and then Piers Morgan said you were very personally insulting to Norman Finkelstein, but he wasn't to you, despite extreme provocation. I thought you overdid it. Oh my God, dude, this must have went horrible for the Zionists.
And that's my point.
Wow, hold up.
If you lose Piers Morgan, it means you lost bad. Like, because he's looking for any reason to give Shmuley the benefit of the doubt. If it was like a tie, he's going to say, oh, it's pretty close, but Shmuley probably won. But you know how bad of a train wreck it has to be for Piers Morgan to actually call him out afterwards? That's my point. The Israelis don't even understand how awful they look because they dehumanize Palestinians so bad, which is normal in their circles. But in everybody else's, the 95% who aren't Zionists aren't buying this stuff. And if you lose Piers Morgan, that means that you got wiped out. That means so that's my point. I don't think that they realize exactly how alone they are and how horrible this stuff comes off to the rest of the world.
All right, so I think we may cover that a bit because I found the video. But I'm going to show you guys the South American leaders that rallied in support for Lula before I do that. As you have Netanyahu calling him an anti-Semite. You have a bunch of Zionists in the media in Europe that's melting down at Lula for daring calling Israel the Jewish state, comparing them to the Nazis. Well, if it looked like a Nazi, it smelled like a Nazi, it killed kids like a Nazi, it's probably a Nazi. But the world has turned against the United States and Israel, so they are isolated in a big way. That's why you're seeing these public meltdowns like Rabbi Shmuley on Piers Morgan. That's why you're seeing these people, they're losing it. That's why you're seeing the right completely abandoning their free speech grift because the Israel is losing the PR battle so much. So here's you had Nicolas Maduro, and I had the video. Let me see if I can find the video version of this, where he said Hitler was a construct, a monster created by Western elites. Today, the criminal military apparatus of Israel has the same encouragement, funding, and support. As President Lula said, what the Israeli government is doing is the same thing that Hitler did to the Jewish people. So Nicolas Maduro said, he said nothing wrong, fam. You have the Colombian president
Gustavo Petro.
Yeah, Gustavo Petro, who said in Gaza there's a genocide and thousands of children and women are cowardly murdered. Lula has only spoken the truth. Lula has only spoken the truth, and the truth must be defended, or barbarism will annihilate us. So this is leaders on the world stage. This is another one, another Colombian president who stood up for Lula. And what does it say about the United States and their falling influence? That despite all the criticism I have of Lula, and there's legitimate criticism to have about his domestic policy, a lot of it which is not my business, but he has been exceptional in speaking out against the U.S. empire. Like we have the Julian Assange hearing today. He called out the United States for imprisoning Julian Assange. That's something that he's been vocal about. He called out Israel and their genocide right now. He called out the United States, Zelensky, and Ukraine for the Ukraine proxy war. You had Lula and AMLO that teamed up and called out the Cuban embargo. So, Robert, do you see what's happening here? Where you have the Mexican president, you had the Brazilian president, and usually these presidents, because they are so close and they have to have close relationship with the United States, usually these presidents are extremely conservative when it comes to the United States. They usually are more than happy to repeat United States propaganda. Every single Mexican president has been like that. Brazilian presidents have always been extremely moderate, extremely capitalist. But now the United States has gone so far, you have AMLO and Lula that have been aggressively calling out the Biden administration. AMLO leading the charge to call out the Cuban embargo, lifting the Cuban embargo. Lula also called out the Ukraine war. And now you're seeing this coalition of South American leaders that is not buying the United States bullshit anymore. Anything else you want to add to this, Robert, before we move on?
I think you nailed it. I think the whole global South is quickly going to turn against the West. I think that the Ukraine war has really exposed the West, and particularly the US military, as sort of a paper tiger. And I think that there has also been some inspiration gained from the war in Palestine, the genocide in Palestine right now, particularly the Gazans themselves, the Hamas, but also in particular the Houthis in Yemen have really inspired a lot of Arabic countries to also kind of, buck recent trends. And I think they all realize that the US and Israel, they talked a big talk. And, they put that propaganda out there that made you think that like the US military and the Israeli spy agencies are really like the best in the world. But I think we've really seen that exposed lately. So I think that you're going to see the global South all start to kind of coalesce together and move sort of eastward. As BRICS rises and more countries in the global South are included in BRICS and also in the Middle East, I think you're going to see the Middle East and the global South completely turn against the West. And it's going to be, for me, that's epic because that needs to absolutely happen. But I think they finally realized that they don't have to be subordinate to the West the way that they used to. If they band together and move eastward, I think that they're probably going to be just fine. But they have to do it that way. They have to kind of decide together that we need to buck recent trends, get rid of the petrodollar for one. I don't know if you saw, but Egypt dropped the petrodollar entirely today. Like they're not trading in US dollars at all anymore. Egypt isn't. So we're going to see, they're a recent BRICS member, by the way. I think you're going to see that with a lot more BRICS members, and the global South is going to very quickly, I think, turn against the West.
So Israel demanded Brazil apologize. They said that they need Lula to retract and apologize, or they won't be welcome back, or they won't have friendly relationship with Israel. And Brazil essentially responds, "Fuck you. I said what I said." That's essentially what Lula like, nigga, I'm not retracting anything I said. You guys murder children. So Brazil recalls ambassador to Israel in row over Lula's Gaza comments. Israel said Brazilian president is not welcome in country after he compared Israel war on Gaza to the Holocaust. And he said, "Beat it, nerd."
Yeah.
I don't care.
Gustavo Petro did that after October 7th. he expelled the Israeli ambassador immediately.
Because this is the terrorist country that Lula and the world are uniting to oppose. The only thing protecting Israel is the axis of evil, the United States and UK. You had a doctor in Gaza that had this story in the LA Times that's very devastating. Talking about how the title of this article is I was a doctor in Gaza. It's not a war. It's a slaughter. Now look at this. On one occasion, a handful of children, all about ages 5 to 8, were carried to the emergency room by their parents and all had a single sniper shot to the head. So you had Israel with their cowardly snipers because they get their ass handed to them on a battlefield against Hamas. They see children in their sniper scopes and they are picking them off for fun with a single sniper shot to the head. There are reports of IDF shooting Palestinians in their kneecaps because they enjoy watching them suffer. That's the funnest part. The funniest thing to do, just pick a random Palestinian, shoot them in the kneecaps. What they're also doing is they're just fighting children and just pucking it right in the dome. And they want us to be afraid of being called anti-Semites for calling them out as the Nazi scum they are. Anything want to add, Robert, real quick?
Yeah, that the word anti-Semite really doesn't land anymore. They've worn it out the same way they wore out Putin puppet, other right winger. They just, when these people, these rich elitists, and in this case Zionists, they have no argument. They're just going to slap you with that. But they overuse it so much, and they never actually engage on the substance, that it just becomes like a useless term. And I had a relatively viral tweet yesterday that was calling this out. I was like, do you think that I care if you call me anti-Semite when I've just watched you kill 13,000 children over the last 3 months? Bring it on. You got another thing coming. So it doesn't land. I think people understand that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are not, in fact, the same thing. In fact, I took a big poll a couple of months back when this first started, when I first saw the ADL trying to get those two things equated. And in fact, they did pass something in Congress equating the two, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And the poll was overwhelmingly, no, those two are not the same thing. It was like 99% to 1, and I had thousands of votes on it. So most people can see through it, and they're wearing out the term. And when you point out stuff like this, it makes it much easier to see that Zionism and these people that sadistically take glee out of sniping journalists and children and stuff like that, it's like, clearly you're the bad guys. And quite frankly, that seems like something the Nazis would do, doesn't it? And most average people, you don't have to be a political junkie of any kind to see that. So I mean, this is just one in a long line of atrocious things that they've done, and you mentioned numerous of them, all of which could be easily something you would see coming out of World War II that the Nazis did to the Jews back in the day. So
I had a segment planned. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I don't know if I'm going to get to it, but I don't know if you guys seen Rachel Maddow's unhinged reaction to Tucker and Putin interview. And then she had another segment where she was talking about Navalny and why it's so important to oppose Putin. And during this segment, and I decided to cut it today because it wasn't that important, but she goes on like a 5-minute rant pretending that Putin is the worst leader humanity have seen. Ma'am, Russia is opposing the genocide we are seeing in Gaza right now. We have the Biden administration that sees Israel sniping kids in the head. They're seeing people having their limbs amputated without anesthesia. They see the ICJ say that there are plausible case for genocide against the Palestinian people. And despite that, they are still the lone veto on a ceasefire in Gaza. The Biden administration is one of the most unhinged, batshit crazy, violent administrations we have seen in modern human history. Like, openly, unapologetically using their diplomacy in order to steal for a genocide. Meanwhile, Rachel Maddow and Jon Stewart are doing segments about how evil Putin is. Do you guys know how crazy the society is? We are ruled by baby killers. But they want you to hate Putin? You want to know who supported this resolution? Russia did. And Russia was consistently calling them out. Here is Russia. Not in the mood to give up. Today we have witnessed another black page in the history of the Security Council. And you see a lot of, and these are a collection of statements from countries that we are told that we are supposed to hate. Here's China, the quote-unquote authoritarian country that we should be prepared to go to war with because they're so evil, apparently. China says veto sends the wrong message. And they called out the United States' use of veto power to shield Israel's crimes. You have Lula, who is tired of the United States shit. He said the right to veto must end, and the members of the UN Security Council must be pacifist players, not activists who foment war. So now the problem has gotten so bad to the point where now the discussions about the United States veto power, because they are weaponizing it in bad faith. How can you have people who claim they are advocating for peace when they are supplying and they are benefiting from bombs they are sending to other countries? Here's another country and leader that we are told we are supposed to hate. Kim Jong-un has ordered support to the Palestinians. And if you follow North Korea, once again, everything that you've been told about North Korea is a lie, is bullshit by Western media. It is South Korea that is the fascist government that brutally arrests people for simply praising North Korea, for mentioning the fact that the United States and South Korea killed millions of their people. You will be sent to prison in South Korea if you tell the truth about North Korea. But people think North Korea is tyrannical because Kim Jong-un has the audacity to oppose the West. How dare North Korea be the victim of a sanctions regime, Robert?
Yeah, and if you want to know the most ironic thing about the Biden administration acting like, Putin is Hitler, or they'll act like Trump is Hitler, the craziest thing is that objectively and statistically speaking, I can't remember a regime, I'm going to call it a regime, worse than the Biden regime when it comes to actually enabling Nazism globally. Because remember, they've spent $120 billion in Ukraine. But we know because of that CBS documentary that at least 70% of the weapons that went into Ukraine are not making it to the front lines. So what does that mean? We know that the Azov battalion is a huge thing there. They have all these right-wing nationalist and overtly Nazi militias in the Ukrainian military, which are just taking those weapons and they're going to end up on the black market, or a lot of them are just going to end up in the hands of actual Nazis in Ukraine. And right now, they're trying to send $61 billion more to those Nazis in Ukraine. And here's what's going to happen. All those weapons are going to end up in the hands of these insane Ukraine and neighboring countries. Like the Georgian Legion has one of the most that's called the Georgian Legion. It's one of the most sadistic militias out there. And they were recruited as like mercenaries to fight with the Ukrainians. They're all just heavily weaponized now because of what Joe Biden did. And, that's really the pot calling the kettle black when you're talking about how Putin is more like Hitler. It's like, no, to be fair, Joe Biden has enabled Nazism more and certainly will in future years than any president in recent history. And as far as Navalny goes, they're like eulogizing Navalny, completely ignoring mainstream media and all of our politicians, completely ignoring that he was an actual Nazi and a CIA asset as well. They're going to, mourn that guy. They're going to, in the Canadian Parliament, they're going to stand up and applaud an SS 96-year-old guy from World War II named Yaroslav Hunka. Like, bro, we have to look at ourselves if you want to see where the real Nazism problem is. And objectively, we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars that is likely going to turn into weaponry that ends up in the hands of Nazis in Ukraine and other Eastern European countries. So, I mean, that's really the pot calling the kettle black when you talk about Biden and all of these other neoliberal, these elitists calling Putin the next Hitler. It's like, no, to be fair, we've done our fair share of enabling Nazism globally over the last 3 years.
All right, so I'm begging you guys to decolonize your mind. He said, no, North Korea are bastards too. Based on what? I am asking you this question. What information have you received about North Korea? All the information that you're told about North Korea are CIA spooks and information that cannot be confirmed. You want to know that can be confirmed? In North Korea, they don't have a homeless problem. You know why? Because they provide homes to their people. We got Skid Row out here, and you guys are judging North Korea? You want to know who stood against apartheid in South Africa? North Korea. You want to know who's been an ally to the Palestinians for years? North Korea. You want to know who opposed United States empire at every single turn and liberated their people against a genocidal regime who killed millions of their people because they simply chose a different ideology to them? North Korea. They feed their people. They often give free food to their people. You guys hate North Korea because the United States put sanctions and starved them to death. You guys criticize North Korea because their government struggles to maneuver between brutal Western sanctions. Think about that for a second. You condemn a government because they struggle with financial sanctions and the West destroying them. They take care of the people better than they take care of ours. They provide health care to their people, housing to their people, and they resist imperialism and war crimes whenever they see it. They have friendly and close relationships with Africa because they stood in solidarity with Congo and many African countries that was victim to imperialism. If you're someone who anti-empire, you are friends of North Korea because they've been standing against the empire every step of the way with brutal consequences. Why do you think they've been starved to death? Why do you hate them? I'm asking you the question. In the United States, we have people who are food insecure, aka starving. We have Skid Row, millions of people homeless, medical debt. And the question is, who's sanctioning us, Robert? Who's the giant empire that's sanctioning us? Meanwhile, our country can't take care of their people, and you're criticizing North Korea, even though the entire Western regime starving them? If you listen to the media, you start hating the people who are oppressed and loving the oppressors. Are y'all serious?
Anyway, yeah, it's a classic Western media trick is to impose a bunch of sanctions on a country or embargoes or, completely cripple their government using CIA ops and then blame socialism in that area as if that had anything to do with it. It's like, no, they're failing because they do this with Cuba too. They have the embargo. They never mentioned that we're just embargoing the shit out of them, which is part of the reason why they had a poverty problem. But if you look at what's actually going on in Cuba, it's amazing what they've done with their socialist government, despite the embargo.
North Korea educates their people. They create doctors. They educate them without them going bankrupt. How pathetic are Americans that you guys live paycheck to paycheck? You guys are in debt because you had the crime of wanting to be educated, and you have the nerve to criticize another country, a country in which we starve? We got a student debt crisis here. You got people in debt, people living paycheck to paycheck, people are starving with no sanctions on our country. The biggest cowards are the people who live in the empire that are the most violent, brutal empire that's a police state that imprison 1/4 of the world's prison population. But you want to go after North Korea? Where's their prison population? They keep making all these stories about the prison population. Where's the receipts? The United States imprisons more than every other country, but you guys think North Korea is a prison state? North Korea loves and appreciates their leader because he's fighting for their people. He provides services for their people. And American people can't even wrap their minds around it. So they think they're brainwashed. No, they understand that the North Korean leaders are being punished by the Western regime because they are standing up against them. You have the West that killed millions. Look up the Korean War. They killed millions of Koreans. And you guys wonder why there was a genocide in Korea. Simply because they chose a different ideology. What do you guys think happens to a populace where millions are killed, and that was only a generation ago? So you have North Korean leaders that immediately rebuilt their country and fed their people while at the same time regaining their sovereignty, unlike the traitors in South Korea who sold out to Western capital, which is why their suicide rates is off the charts. They live in a fascist authoritarian state. You guys know in South Korea, and I'm sorry this is going off the rail because I got to educate some people here. You guys know in South Korea, you get sent to prison for telling the truth about North Korea. If you don't repeat the Western propaganda about North Korea, if you have a Facebook page and you start praising them, they will send your ass to prison in South Korea. But you guys think North Korea is the authoritarian state? You guys have no information. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world. You guys have no idea about the countries you guys are criticizing. Another thing a lot of people don't know, you guys know weed is legal in North Korea? Kim Jong-un loves some marijuana. Something else you don't know. You got to humanize your enemies. You will never know that. They got a big stoner culture. Weed is very common. Beer is another thing that's very common. Beer is a very big part of North Korean culture. They have beer all the time in North Korea. Like, people are taught in America just to blindly hate other countries. And it's a coordinated attack to paint the picture that everyone is living like in horrible conditions and we should be thankful to be American. You know what I mean? I just want you guys to think about this kind of stuff. The North Korean people have been sanctioned by the West, been brutalized by the West, and he still feeds his people, still houses people, still provide them health care. We are sanctioned by no one. We stole billions of wealth, trillions in wealth of Africa and the global South, and we still have poor white people. People are like, what about the poor white people? How are the poor white people in this country, considering how rich we are, considering the crimes that white people committed? Every single white person should be rich, but you guys are not, because the system sucks. But you guys want to worry about North Korea as you got poor white people. Poor white people in the richest country of all time, but you guys worry about North Korea. Fucking colonized brainworms. So that's a side segment. And I did that mostly just so you guys can start the decolonization process regarding North Korea and any person who's an enemy of the United States. Because you have Bernie Sanders and Dr. Cornel West and all these Western leftists who I despise now, who they say we resist the United States empire, but we believe all the smears regarding their enemies. You have right-wing chuds that say, I'll never trust CNN. I never trust the New York Times. I'll never trust the Washington Post. But they believe everything they say about socialism. They believe everything they say about China and North Korea. You're not as anti-establishment as you think you are. But anyway, let's move on. Anything you want to add to this, Robert? That was a side tangent.
No, you nailed it, man. That's I think you said enough for both of us.
So as people hate North Korea, you have the United States that being very open about their attention. This is before I get to that video, I'm gonna show you guys this. This is the black woman that they shield behind, and this is why the United States is so evil. They have Negroes that always are the people they hire to do these votes at the UN. They are disgusting, that shield genocide, because they don't want white people. Let me show you guys this capture. Look at this. U.S. veto genocide. Look how diverse that is. They want black people to be in front of the genocide. They want us to be the face of genocide, even though there's all white people in suits making these decisions. This is by design. And now I'm going to show you guys this, where you've been seeing a lot of fraudulent slips recently because people are supporting a genocide. Now look at this video. This video is very hilarious.
We intend to do this the right way.
This is the United States response after vetoing the ceasefire proposal in the UN Security Council, further isolating themselves from the world. And now this is the response.
That we can create the right conditions for a safer, more peaceful future. And we will continue to actively engage in the hard work of direct diplomacy on the ground until we reach a final solution.
What? If you are supporting a genocide, how about you not use the term final solution to talk about it? So maybe we should believe him? And I know that's kind of humorous, but this is what the traitorous scum in our country, the people who sold us out to our hostile genocidal regime, this is what they're saying about the genocide in Gaza.
I've seen the footage of
You've seen footage of
shredded children's bodies, and that's my taxpayer dollars. I'm going to bomb those kids.
So I think we should kill them all.
You guys think you hate North Korea though? You think Kim Jong-un is evil? You guys think Xi Jinping is evil? You guys think Putin is evil? So she described how children are being shredded. In response to that, he doesn't even deny the fact that children should be killed. He said we should kill them all. So they've been saying this a lot about Trump. We should take them seriously, right? Take them at face value. Here it is again.
That's my taxpayer dollars. I'm going to bomb those kids.
So I think we should kill them all. If that makes you feel better. Everybody.
Everybody. Just in case it wasn't clear. A clear incitement of genocide. Every single, in a just society, it's not going to happen because we don't live in a just society and international law is not real. But if it was, every single one of these senators, and I'm talking about all 50 of them, because all 50 of them support this, all 50 of these senators will be, all Republican and Democrat senators, I should say, will be sent to The Hague for their support of Israel genocide and their incitement for genocide. There are people that think North Korea, Putin, and Xi Jinping is evil, as we have senators that saying this. Anyway, anything else you want to add to this before we move on? Let me put the next one up.
Nah, when people tell you who they really are, believe them. And it's weird to see him actually have a moment of honesty, because usually the politicians and the people at the State Department, they at least do their due diligence to pretend like they care about both sides. You know, it's usually the Israelis and Israeli media themselves who are the ones that are most overtly coming out and saying things like this. Like the IDF head, Yoav Gallant, he went viral early on after October 7th for saying, you know, we're laying siege to Gaza. We're cutting off electricity, food, water. These are human animals we're fighting right here. But usually you will not get that kind of candor from, you know, senators and congressmen. But as it turns out, you know, some of them are just kind of like, fuck it at this point. Let's just be honest. And that's, you know, I appreciate his candor, because now at least we know that, you know, he's a psycho and he's all for genocide. So I almost wish all of them would just be honest, because we know that truly Democrats and Republicans are all on board for funding Israel, no matter how many children they kill. But this is the only guy with the balls to come out and actually be like, yeah, kill them all.
So let's talk about Bernie Sanders now, who, as I mentioned here, and I got quite a few likes for simply saying it, it's clear now, excuse me, that Bernie Sanders is just pure evil. You have over half of Biden supporters, people who voted for Joe Biden. I'm talking about liberals. You know what I mean? Half of those people believe that there's a genocide in Gaza. So Bernie Sanders is effectively to the right, a majority of the Democratic Party, a right-wing capitalist party. He is to the right of. He is to the right of majority of the world population, and that is the average social democrat. You guys understand? The average social democrat is to the right of the world population. AOC is a right-winger in the world because she supports war. She supports these violent capitalists. As you have South Africa completely destroy Israel, and if anyone read it, if anyone watched the hearing, it was an ironclad argument for genocide against Israel, or that Israel committed genocide in Gaza. Despite all the overwhelming evidence, despite all these giant countries who agree with South Africa. So not only do you have the court that agree with South Africa in their hearing, you have countries that come out and say, like giant countries like Brazil, Lula. Remember the person that Bernie Sanders pretended that he was adjacent to.
Argue about
Lula saying that they literally fucking Nazis. Remember Bernie was trying to pretend that him and Lula is close in politics? But Bernie can't even say that. Yeah, the entirety of the global south, China, Putin, who Bernie Sanders think is evil. Bernie Sanders think Putin is evil, as Putin is calling out the genocide and he is not. So let's watch this clip and I'll give you a reaction. And the debate between Norman Finkelstein and what's his name is pretty long, so I don't know how much we can get into that because I don't want to keep it here too long. We might say that for another time. That's gonna be a banger. That's gonna be like a one topic stream. If we do cover it. I gotta check it out soon. I'll get off stream, but I don't want to keep you here too long. So we cover this, and I think I got one more story and we can wrap up. This is Bernie being asked about the genocide in Gaza, and obviously he gave a cowardly answer.
In your view, is what Israel is doing in Gaza a genocide?
In my view, it is absolutely disgraceful, horrible, and I'm doing, as a United States Senator, everything I can to end it. And where I'm sitting is, and I don't know how many people know this, every year the United States provides about $3.5 billion in military aid to Israel. On top of that, there is a bill. I was supposed to be here earlier. Couldn't come because a bill came up for not just all for Israel, $95 billion, including $14 billion for Israel. And I have led the opposition to that. I do not.
Do you want a cookie, sir? You want a fucking cookie? Now, and I'm glad that no one is falling for this. Because even the POC class hates Bernie now. Because he's trying to do this thing after saying that Israel has the right to defend himself, after refusing to call for a ceasefire, after voting for aid packages to Israel. Bernie Sanders waited until there was around 15,000 dead kids. And he was like, I think that's good. I was looking for that around that amount. When I said that Israel needed to go after Hamas, I had around 15,000 dead kids on my estimation list before I started to get queasy, before I decided that it was enough. Now they've gone too far. Now let's reel them in. Bernie, you get no credit. And this blatant attempt that you're trying to do to try and paint yourself on the right side of history is so transparent. Even the dumbest PMC leftists I've seen have called you out for this. Like even like the Ryan Grimms, you know what I mean? Like the Crystal Balls, even they're calling Bernie out for this very transparent attempt to pivot after supporting the genocide. Anything you want to add before we continue, Robert?
Yeah, actually, this is exactly Bernie's. This is what he does. This is what his purpose is for the Democratic Party. It's to go out there and to pretend like you're a little bit better on things like this than Joe Biden. Yeah. Say, I'm doing stuff behind the scenes, everything I can to cut funding for Israel without actually mentioning the word genocide. It took him forever. Has he actually said ceasefire, the word ceasefire? I don't think he has. I mean, if he has, it's been sparse. But that's his function, is to go out there and give the appearance that there's a progressive wing of the Democratic Party that's better than the Joe Bidens. And if you look, there's a tactic being used right now to kind of defend Biden from this as well. I think the Democratic elites, the real world movers, the donors of these people, not necessarily the politicians, but the real Democratic world movers that, you know, are the puppeteers to these puppets. I think they understand that this is political suicide to back up what's going on in Gaza right now, like Joe Biden is doing right now. So if you've noticed, there's been a series of leaks to mainstream media outlets showing that Joe Biden is, you know, behind closed doors calling Netanyahu an asshole. You know, it's like, no one's buying that. That tells me, and Bernie going out there and doing this right now tells me that the Democrats understand that it's political suicide to go out there and full-throatedly be behind this genocide in Gaza right now. So what do? They trot their little lapdog Bernie out there to go out there and be like, well, it's really terrible what's going on, and we're going to think about messing with Israel's purse strings. And then they do that leaking stuff behind the scenes to show that Joe Biden allegedly, behind closed doors, not publicly, and he hasn't come out and said anything against Netanyahu or the genocide, and he's not had anybody at the UN even abstain from any of these things. He's had them veto every single resolution for a humanitarian pause or a ceasefire that have come up at the UN. They're distancing themselves from it and they're trying to make the Democratic Party almost like have them wash their hands of it a little bit. That's Bernie's purpose, and that's what he's out there doing. But what he's saying right here, nonsense. We all know he's not doing that shit behind the scenes. We all know he's not going to do anything to cross Biden because, and this is the last point I'll make about him, the Democrats just had a 2-year majority, and Bernie Sanders was head of the Senate Budget Committee for 2 fucking years. He could have, at any point, he could have held up Israel's budget at that point. He could have held up the entire military budget as head of the Senate Budget Committee. He didn't do that at all. So we already know that he's not actually doing anything. Even when he had power, he didn't do shit. And neither did the squad. All that they exist to do, their whole function is to give the illusion that there's some sort of progressive fight, progressive wing within the Democratic Party, but it's all words. It's all words. When you actually look at what they do, they vote along with the Republicans all the time. Same with Bernie, man. It's all symbolism over substance.
Yeah, let's continue because it gets really bad very fast.
I want to see the United States complicit in what Netanyahu and his right wing.
And I'm gonna say this because Bernie and his PLC friends in the Democratic Party that think they slick. You notice how he keeps saying Bernie always does this thing where he said the Netanyahu government.
Yeah, they try to pin it on Netanyahu like he's some sort of anomaly rather than it's not Zionist ideology that's the problem, and the fact that this was an MI6 CIA operation that started back in like the 40s. Like, dude, like this is like the Zionist project is the problem. Netanyahu is just a product of that project.
Why do I feel like so many people are unserious about politics, man? It only takes 30 seconds to look into the political situation in Israel and realize that if Benjamin Netanyahu called for a ceasefire and didn't do his military campaign, this motherfucker would have been strung up on a tree somewhere. You guys realize that only 1.8% of Israelis was upset because how much their government bombed in Gaza? Around 48% of Israelis was upset because they felt like their government didn't bomb enough. So Netanyahu, like every politician, is doing what is going to keep his ass alive politically, which is kill Palestinians. So Bernie pretends that this is the message of progressive set Palestine people like Marianne Williamson and Bernie's. They believe that Israel's a reliable ally, that they just been misled by bad governance.
Right.
Like, it's such a silly worldview. And I'm sorry to stop it again, but I had to explain it because they do this fucking trick. Netanyahu is a moderate in the Likud party. He had been considered a moderate in the Likud party. When you see the genocidal statements, there have been members of the Likud party that call for the straight up airstrikes and blowing up Gaza altogether. Many people in the Likud party call for annexing Gaza. This is a position that Netanyahu doesn't agree with. Netanyahu believes in starving Gaza and controlling Gaza, but many in the Likud party believe that they shouldn't even allow Gaza to exist. Like, there's so many levels to this that people don't understand. So Netanyahu is just there to facilitate the will of the Likud party, but he's the moderate. He's not the guy. And this is what they do with Russia as well, pretend that the only reason there's a Ukraine war because Putin snapped, instead of the fact that this is the will of the Russian people to fight Nazis whenever they get close to their border. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's continue the video. I just had to explain that. Let's continue.
Netanyahu and his right-wing lunatic friends are doing right now to the Palestinian people. So my job right now is to support what the United Nations is trying to do, have a humanitarian ceasefire, see if we can get the humanitarian aid immediately in there, and work out, as complex and difficult as it is, some type of long-term solution to what's going on there.
But do you buy the South African case at the International Court of Justice that what Israel is doing in Gaza constitutes genocide or genocidal acts?
I think, look, we can argue about definitions. It is horrible. Right now, 29,000 people have been killed, and some 70,000 have been injured. Some 65% of the housing units have been destroyed or damaged.
Sound like you're describing a genocide, sir.
And
also,
I'm worried right now.
He's using the passive voice the way that the New York Times and WAPO does with everything. It's like, no, so he's going, oh, there's 29,000 people killed, and there have been bullets found in some people's bodies. Like, bro, admit what's going on here.
Yeah, that's
who's
a great
doing
point.
who's doing the shooting. It sounds like you're regurgitating, and then one other point, you notice that he never mentions Joe Biden. You notice that he never mentions that the actual solution to this, it doesn't matter what Israel wants to do. Joe Biden could turn off the tap with one phone call to Netanyahu, be like, you're cut off. It's all over. You're not getting your $4 billion this year. You're not getting your $14 billion. I will veto it if it gets to my desk, which it's not going to do. It's in our power. It's in his good buddy Joe Biden's power to actually cut this off. But he mentions Netanyahu as if there's nothing that we can do to rein in this psychopath. It's like, no, they've even admitted, Israelis have admitted, that if we cut off the tap, they wouldn't be able to do this. So you are responsible, and you must take responsibility for the things that you can control, which Bernie can control. Things that Joe Biden does because he's one of the most popular, he was one of the most popular senators in the country. But, he's let Joe Biden get away with everything to this point, so why not a little bit further? He never mentions Joe Biden at all. It's all Netanyahu.
Yeah, let's continue.
Units have been destroyed or damaged, and I am worried right now, and I almost wonder why I'm in the UK and not back in the US dealing with this stuff, is that we have hundreds of thousands of children are facing starvation. That's what I have to work on right now.
But if one agrees that it is a genocide, it means that other states have a legal right and duty to prevent genocidal acts being carried out.
But you
guys see, that's why Bernie doesn't want to be called a genocide, even though he would describe a genocide when talking about it. You guys see how insidious he is? That was in this clip. I don't know who she is really, but in this clip, I was very impressed by her and her follow-up questions, because that's a great point. Bernie pretended like, we can talk about terms, definitions, it's not that important. She's like, no, it actually is important. And Bernie Sanders is a gaslighting evil motherfucker who knows exactly what he's doing when he does that. You guys see what I'm talking about? Just definition. No, the definition is important. You are a genocide-denying Nazi scum, Bernie.
Can talk about that.
And that's another part that no, you guys see, but we can talk about that. You guys are talking about it right now. What are you talking about? This bullshit deflection that come from the PMC class. These people who think they're smarter than us, so they can redirect the conversation. We can talk about this. We're talking about it right now, Bernie. Tell us your position, you coward. It's like Dr. West. Do you guys know what speaking truth to power means? Dr. West says it. But speaking truth to power means you call out Alexei Navalny as a white supremacist, even though it's uncomfortable for your social club. But he doesn't do that because he'd rather be in a social club, so he praises Alexei Navalny instead. That is not speaking truth to power. Dr. Cornel West doesn't speak truth to power, and Bernie Sanders doesn't speak truth to power. That is what it means. But let's continue.
To prevent genocidal acts being carried out.
But we can talk about that. But what does that mean? I mean, in real terms, right now, what I am trying to do is what I think is probably maybe, and I can do it because I'm a senator. You can't. Right now, maybe, if we tell Mr. Netanyahu that he's not getting a check with $10 billion more to continue his aggressive action, he and his right-wing friends may decide it is not a good idea to continue to do that. So that's where I am coming from.
In addition to stopping the billions of dollars in military aid that Israel gets from the United States every year, would you back calls for a cultural, sporting, and economic boycott of Israel?
I am nervous about economic boycotts of any country, to be honest with you.
Bullshit! Bullshit, Bernie! You lying scumbag! Bernie wasn't against economic boycotts and sanctions against Russia. You bullshit artist! This is what disgusts me. It's not a difference in ideology between the RB and left and these people. It's a difference in integrity. I have people on this show who are not communists, who are people who are not 100% aligned on ideology. But it's the lack of integrity that gets me. You know what I mean? That's a lie. You do support sanctions. You support sanctions on Russia. But you say you don't support. If you don't support boycott, I'll pass right to you, Robert. But if you don't support boycotts, what methods should the Palestinians resist? You condemn Hamas, you condemn people who have the right to resist their violent oppressors, but if you support BDS, you're also wrong? So Bernie is saying shut up and die in a literal sense. You can't do peaceful protests, like boycotting, and you can't also fight back as a resistance movement. But go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, and the Russians went out of their way in particular to avoid civilian casualties to a fault in Ukraine. They were actually sending soldiers into areas like they knew that there were Ukrainian soldiers and mercenaries in certain buildings, but they knew there were also civilians in those buildings. And they would before they would bomb the building, they would send in the soldiers to evacuate the civilians first, even if a lot of the Russian soldiers died in said evacuation process. If you listen to people like Douglas McGregor and Scott Ritter, they'll talk about how like there will be books written on how the Russians actually went out of their way to protect civilians. So, I mean, he's for sanctioning those people who are going out of their way in this special military operation to avoid civilian casualties. But no, we have to think twice about what's going on in Gaza and what the Israelis are doing. And my follow-up question, the young lady does a great job. She does an excellent job. But my question would have been a follow-up is like, okay, so do you agree with what the Houthis are doing right now in Yemen, which is they're blocking the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in a bloodless blockade, not killing anybody, just simply blocking US and Israeli ships, which costs them tons of extra money to, sail around Africa instead of going through the Red Sea? Do you support that or not? And of course, his answer would have been, no, of course I don't. Those are terrorists. He'll make up some bullshit doing some New York Times or WAPO headline bullshit where it's like, no, the Houthis are absolutely terrorists. And what they're doing to Israel is terrorism, even though they haven't actually killed anybody as far as I know, or they hadn't up until recently.
This is why I learned that social democrats are actually very insidious, man. They are against all resistance.
Stalin used to call them the moderate wing of fascism.
They are, for real. Like, I've been so radical. I heard that quote before. I was like, what that? I mean, while I was liberal, like, what does that mean? When you first hear these quotes. Now I completely understand what these motherfuckers were saying. Yep. Like, they are a moderate wing of fascism because they don't want you to fight fascism. It's unbelievable.
And they also serve their greatest purpose, which is what Bernie's doing right now, which is to give the illusion that they actually are doing something within the party. Michael Parente used to call this counter-revolutionary, meaning they're in there to give people the illusion and to make them docile and to make gullible, well-meaning people who want Medicare for all and to end the wars and all this other stuff that Bernie ran on in the last 2 elections, to give those people the illusion that those things are actually being fought for within the Democratic Party when they're absolutely not. They're just rhetorically talking about these things. And to be fair, the squad doesn't even mention those things anymore. They don't even pretend that they're not just Democrats nowadays. Bernie Sanders is the only person really even going out there and paying this weak ass lip service at all. So that's why social democrats are in a very real way. They're wolves in sheep's clothing, and that's exactly their function. And so he's going out there and doing his job for the neoliberal establishment right now by giving the false impression that there's somebody out there that actually cares about the Palestinians. But we all know he doesn't give a shit. If he actually gave a shit, he'd be full-throatedly, backing up what the Houthis are doing. He'd be calling out Biden for not making our ambassador at the UN veto every ceasefire and humanitarian aid resolution that they put forward. But he's not doing that. He just goes, no, it's Netanyahu and what's going on is horrible. And he doesn't mention the Israelis, by name at all. He just says, what's going on over there is a horrible war, and we have to do what we can to stop it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the clip finish, and then I'll get my final thoughts after this. I'll let it finish from here.
That's where I am coming from.
In addition to stopping the billions of dollars in military aid that Israel gets from the United States every year, would you back calls for a cultural, sporting, and economic boycott of Israel?
I am nervous about economic boycotts of any country, to be honest with you. But right now, what people want to do, they can do what they want to do. But right now, again, my job as a United States Senator, and I'm kind of leading that effort in the Senate, is to tell Netanyahu that he is not going to get any more US aid.
Did you feel nervous about the boycott movement against apartheid South Africa? Was that a concern you had at the time?
Boom, fam. Boom. But I let it finish. But she executed him with that follow-up question, and he knows it. Look at his face. He knows that he's just was effortlessly destroyed. But let's continue.
What I thought that as an apartheid state at that point, it was important to put pressure. But people
answer the question, motherfucker, which you didn't even get close to. In fact, you just proved the point. You said people should put pressure. Based on how, Bernie? By boycotting, or are you saying they should take up arms? What are you saying, Bernie? I am so impressed by her. I don't know who she is, but that was a great series of questions with a fatality at the end. I'm against boycotts. Well, what about South Africa, sir? Oh, people should resist. How? But boycotts? Shooting people? What are you implying here, sir? Let's continue.
People can do as they want, and that's all.
Do you think that it's right that British citizens and American citizens can go and fight in the IDF when, as you say, there are such profound humanitarian concerns in Gaza?
Well, I think if British and American people want to do that, I suppose they have the right to do it. It's not something that I've really thought a whole lot about.
Do you think they should have the right?
You don't think much about
I think what the Israeli government doing now is horrible. And I'm not quite sure why people would want to be, part of that effort.
This fucking dance that Bernie does, literally everyone in the world sees through it. And I don't think I have ever seen anyone thoroughly destroy his reputation the way he has. Because even though we've seen through Bernie, after his campaign, there are still a lot of people who wanted to hold on in the United States. And even, I would say globally as well. Like, you would see Lula, you would see Claire Daly, you would see all these people who praise Bernie, you know what I mean? But now that image is gone. Like, whenever Bernie leaves his fucking echo chamber, when he goes to Dublin, for example, if he had met with anyone outside of his professional managerial class, bourgeoisie social circle, this is what he'd be met with. I know you guys probably seen this before, but I have to show you guys this because this is Bernie Sanders' reputation from now on, and he won't be remembered, Robert, for his 2 runs. You guys think people are gonna remember those 2 embarrassing failed efforts? Do you remember who ran in '76 and lost? Who ran an insurgent campaign in '92? No one remember that shit in history. People remember who supported genocide, who did not. In the year 2070, they're not going to be talking about a random senator from Vermont who lost a primary. They may be talking about the senator from Vermont who supported a genocide, though. So I'm gonna play the video and we wrap up. I'll give you last thoughts and we get out here, Robert. But this is Bernie Sanders.
What is going on right now is absolutely outrageous. We've got to do everything that we can to end the slaughter of innocent men, women, and children. What I have supported, and I will work as hard as I can to get the Biden administration to support, is a UN trying to bring about a ceasefire, a humanitarian pause, ceasefire, in order to provide the desperately needed aid that the Gaza people need. When you get to the word, I get a little bit queasy, and I don't. What genocide? We use the word. We got to be careful about that word.
It is a genocide.
What's your definition of genocide?
Bernie, you have funded Zionism yourself. You have funded the Israeli settler state. Here you are pretending you aren't. It is disgusting. Liar, liar, genocide denier. Liar, liar, genocide denier. It's disgusting. It is reprehensible. You are a child killer. You are a genocide denier. The United States military industrial complex are the largest murderers in the world. It does not matter if it is a Democrat or a Republican. You have murdered people around the world. The Native Americans are still being genocided. I have never heard you once speak about genocide.
This is Bernie's reputation from now on. Genocide denier. Any last thoughts, Robert?
No, I am very happy to see him fall from grace because he is more useful with his old reputation. And now that it's been destroyed, finally, maybe we can move on from this failed boutique left bullshit. You and I have been on this for years, but I mean, you're like you said, a lot of people, they needed the mask to fully come off of these people, and it couldn't happen fast enough for me. It makes me very happy to see him heckled like that. And if I may, I hope all politicians that are for this genocide get heckled like that everywhere they go for the rest of their miserable lives. I hope that happens. I commend that gentleman for doing that. That's wonderful. We need more of that because, of course, history will remember the people that were standing up against this, and they will remember the people that were pretending like, well, let's play semantical games on whether or not it actually is genocide, even though, you know, the president, Isaac Herzog, said that there are no civilians in Gaza. They're all Hamas. That's the president of Israel said that. Yoav Gallant said that they're all human animals. I mean, there are people in high up in these, you know, positions of power in Israel and their government that are explicitly saying that it actually is ethnic cleansing and genocide, and yet Bernie's trying to play defense for these people. No, history will remember you exactly for what you were, and I'm glad to see all these people crash and burn. Now maybe we can all agree that the Justice Democrats are just Democrats, and that this whole experiment running through the Democratic Party and putting all of our faith in these politicians is it was never going to work. It was never going to work. And if I may, it makes me happy to see Marianne Williamson crash and burn as well, because my man, like we knew that she was going to run and she was just going to take a bunch of money from gullible people. She polled at 2% or pulled like 11,000 votes total. And she pulled $4 million from those people. Now, I'm going to ask those people honestly, for the people that were on Marianne Williamson's side and that really wanted her to be president, does that feel like a good investment of your money and time? $4 million?
They paid for a book tour.
Right, exactly. And I'm going to implore those people with my last statement here. If you really do care about the things that Marianne pretended to care about, or maybe she really does, but I mean, she was never going to win anyway. She knew, I sent you that picture. She knew a year ago that the primaries were rigged for Biden because she said it in The Hill, reported on it. So she knew she was running a suicide campaign, and she still took that $4 million. Now I'm going to ask those people that donated all that time and money to Marianne, if you really care about that stuff, maybe find a third party candidate or an independent candidate. Ideally not Cornel West, but maybe there's someone else that you like that stands for those similar things. And if you really care about those things, maybe try to build Jill Stein up, something like that, if that's what you really care about. But methinks those people aren't actually going to go out and give their time and money to the Green Party, because it was never about what Marianne Williamson pretended that she cared about. It was all about, got to pump up the Democrats, give them as much money as possible. And she took $4 million to get 11,000 votes. That is $363 per vote. Does that feel like a good investment of your time and money? Maybe next time we run through this, the people that really insisted that we need to get behind Marianne, like the Breaking Points crew, maybe they will think twice about investing $363 per vote in a suicide campaign, and maybe think of something that we can do either outside the duopoly, or personally, now I'm outside electoralism entirely. I don't put much faith in any of these jokers after the Cornel West circus this year, and after Marianne and Bernie. I don't put much faith in those people.
We try to tell people, man. We try to tell people.
Yeah,
and
we tried.
What does it say about the people who allowed Marianne Williamson to go on her platform and lie to them about their faces, about her chances of winning?
Yeah, it tells you that they actually pulled off a very successful grift. I mean, she got $4 million to do nothing. I mean, I thought I made a video a year ago predicting exactly how her campaign would go. I made it it's like a 30-minute video, and I'm like, she's going to get, even if she does well, it's going to be rigged against her or whatever. And then she's going to steal all this money. And it's just from people that are overly well-meaning that were tricked by the Breaking Points crew. So, I mean, we need to wake the fuck up to understand that that is a grift. The Cenk Uygur thing that he's doing right now, that's also a grift. He's got a book that just came out too. Marianne's got a book that just came out. I'm surprised Ryan Grimm didn't also run for president, because he had a book on the Squad just come out. It would have been great for his book tour.
I remember when we explained how Marianne Williamson has a book coming out. I remember the bootlicking dumb Marianne Williamson supporters was like, well, she didn't run because she had a book coming out. This book was always planned to come out. She knew she had a book scheduled to come out around this time.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that Chris Christie has a book? He has a book coming out. He has a book called "What Would Reagan Do?" What will Ronald Reagan do? So Chris Christie runs in a Republican primary where he knows he stands no fucking chance, criticizing Trump in the most shit-lived, Trump derangement syndrome broken way, knowing that he has no chance of winning the election that way. And he would do these interviews like, well, I think I got a chance. I think there's a chance that there's an anti-Trump wing, knowing that's bullshit. Taking donation money, running this election, knowing that you're doing it just so you can sell a book called "What Will Reagan Do?" That is an anti-Trump book. So now, after he ran this his campaign, after going on Morning Joe and all these shows talking about how Trump is so evil, he has an anti-Trump book coming out right when he dropped out. Do you guys think it's a coincidence? How many times do we have to see this bullshit before we just have a no book clause between Marianne Wilson? I don't think it's unreasonable. I said this on Twitter before. I think it's not unreasonable after seeing how books is a way to corrupt people like Cori Bush. Cori Bush got a book deal. You guys think it's a coincidence that she supported Nazis in Ukraine? She supported Nazis in Ukraine, so they gave her a book deal. That was fucking worse. So I don't think it's unreasonable. This is my last word. I'll pass it to you and we get out of here. It's not unreasonable for us. If you want to be a candidate for office, no books. You're not allowed to write books. What is the connection between the amount of authors who want to be public servants? I bet if you did an analysis over professions, what professions are most likely to get into politics? Obviously, you have lawyers and you have authors. Why do writers want to get in public service so much? Do you guys think that's a coincidence? Not at all. If you're a writer, if you're selling books, I don't trust you. Like you better.
Yeah. And they don't even write those books either. They're not writing those books. You think these people actually write those books? No, they get ghostwriters to write it. And I'm telling you, as a satirist, I'm going to call it right now on your show in front of however many people we're in front of right now. You're going to see a John Fetterman book pretty soon. I'll bet you'll see a John Fetterman book. Yeah. And can't you just see him writing that book in his in his Senate office? He's got like a crayon in his hand and he's like, okay, sound it out. Yeah, we're going to be reading the John Fetterman memoirs in like 4 years when he runs for president. And you just know that motherfucker's not writing that book. He's just going to try to make as much money as he can. And AOC might write one too. We'll see.
Bernie Sanders has a book called "It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism."
Yeah, right. But vote Joe Biden.
He don't like boycotts. This motherfucker get queasy at boycotts, but he says it's okay to be angry at capitalism. Hilarious. Last words, and I'll get some super chats. Anything else you want to add? Let's move on. Thank you for $9, John. Hitler and Nazis copied the U.S. genocide of Native Americans. Absolutely. In Jim Crow's segregation laws, the Nazis wanted to take Russian land. Absolutely well said, John. Thank you for the $5. Unemployed scholar. Matt Pat Game Theory did an anti-North. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know what that is. I was so pissed about it. Yeah, people have no idea what they're talking about. And then I have done research in this, unlike other people. So people don't want to have this conversation with me. You gotta know the quotes they get from people are from like CIA spooks, unconfirmed reports. Like, there's unconfirmed reports of a famine going on in North Korea. And then the people go to North Korea and everyone living okay. They just straight up make up shit with no reports. And Americans believe it because they believe any negative thing said about an Asian country. You can say an Asian country is sacrificing babies at the altar every 11 a.m. And white people are like, damn, must be true. Them Asians are crazy. Like, that's what they believe everything with no evidence. You guys know how silly the anti-North Korea propaganda is? Because despite all the crazy stories that come out about the North Korea regime, you would think that people internationally are curious about them, right? They talk about all these crazy regimes, about how you get executed for not crying hard enough when a politician dies. So people around the world goes and investigates. And as all the people who are anti-North Korea, have you ever read those reports of like Chinese reporters going to North Korea? Have you read the reports about European reporters going to North Korea? You probably haven't you? Because every one of those reports like, nigga, this place is nothing like the United States said it is. So you want to know what the United States response to that is? The United States said this, and this is what dumbass Americans really believe. They said North Korea had this sophisticated system of fake cities where people go and they don't actually see the real North Korea. They go to these fake cities where the North Korea government set up fake towns and fake environment where reporters will report on fake realities of North Korea. And American people are so dumb, they believe that's more plausible than simply the fact that the United States lied about North Korea. What's more plausible? The fact that the United States North Korea can have fake cities, can have fake people, fake towns, or is it more likely the United States simply lied about them? What's more likely, fam? So
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
They believe it because they saw it in the interview with James Franco and Seth Rogen. That's the reference that they're going with. And this is, by the way, the same reason why the shitlibs were up in arms about the Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin, because they've spent so much time talking about how he's unhinged. Hillary Clinton was out there saying that he's this maniac, and then 2 nights later she's back on the same show talking about how he's like got dementia and how he doesn't look healthy and how he's losing his mind. No, the reason that they don't want you to watch what Putin is saying is because then you'll realize that everything that they say about Putin is completely false. He's not some sort of like unhinged lunatic who can't find his words. No, that's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden. No, they didn't want you to see what Putin was really like, because then you would watch the interview with Tucker Carlson and Putin and be like, okay, he actually sounds like pretty reasonable. He sounds actually like you would expect a world leader to sound. And it completely shatters this illusion that they make up about people like Kim Jong-un or Putin, whatever. I implore Tucker to go out there and interview as many of those leaders that we've demonized as possible. I would love to see a Xi Jinping interview. I think that would be wonderful. I think he should make a whole series.
He'll get destroyed by G. And one more thing they say about North Korea regarding the fake city thing. You want to know what's funny? And the propaganda in the West is so thick because smart people will repeat this. They will say, well, you can't believe what outside reporters say about North Korea because whenever people visit North Korea, they're not seeing the reality of the situation. You are naturally going to the best North Korean cities, the best North Korean neighborhoods. So you're not getting the reality on the ground. So they paint this false picture by going to nice areas and reporting on the nice areas. So what they are describing, fam, is tourism. So when people visit the United States, do they go to Skid Row or do they go to Hollywood? When they go to Florida, are they going to a homeless encampment in Florida, or are they going to Disneyland? Whenever people go to another country, they go to the nice areas. So when people go to North Korea, they go to the big cities like Pyongyang and others. And when they go there, they're like, man, this place is amazing. They're like, oh, they don't count. So essentially saying you can't say New York City is a good city. Because what about the gutters? What about the homeless people? You can't say LA is a good city because what about Skid Row? You got to see the ridiculous things they say about Asian countries and other countries and people just believe it. Anyway, that's my North Korea power hour.
Yeah,
I can talk about this all day, fam.
Yeah, it's total projection with the point you just made too, because when she came here to visit, what was it, California? Gavin Newsom had cleaned up a whole bunch of shit in LA and all these other cities wherever he was going to go. They just cleaned it up to make it seem like way less dystopian than it actually is. So if anything, we do that.
Yep. Anyway, I gotta move on because I gotta do a North Korea show one day. I can run on that all day because this is something I've been reading about a lot recently, like maybe in the last like 2-3 years. I knew the North Korea narrative was bullshit, but I wanted to like really like know how to debunk it. I think I've learned a lot. Still got a lot to learn. Big shout out to my friend Didi, who's back on Twitter, by the way, who does great tweets and reports on DPRK. There's like a whole faction on Twitter that is designed to debunk bullshit about the DPRK. And white people don't care because they are comforted by the fact and the belief that Asian countries are inferior. You know what I mean? So they don't even care. They're not even curious about what North Korea is actually like. And I'm not saying North Korea is perfect. I am telling you guys everything you're told about them is lies, and you believe it because you have an inherently negative belief about Asian countries. You'll believe everything they tell you about Asian countries the same way that people believe everything they are told about China. Because of course the nasty, disgusting Chinese would do that. Of course the disgusting Koreans would do that. Guys, that is what your brain is telling you, and you don't even know it. Decolonize your mind. But let's move on. I know I'll keep you we almost done. I'll keep you a little bit longer than I planned. But thank you for $2, unemployed scholar. Another example of white power and blackface. I'm assuming you're talking about the lady who was at the UN Security Council. Absolutely. I appreciate
Linda Thomas Greenfield is her name. Don't forget it.
Yeah, thank you for the $10. Edra Santos. The Brazilian press belongs to 5 families, all pro-Zionism. Yeah, guys, remember, Bolsonaro was a giant Zionist, which is me and Fiorella. I give Fiorella a lot of props too, because we was the one like debunking Jackson Hinkles and their bullshit when they were saying there was like I remember he was saying Netanyahu was like against the establishment. They were saying that Bolsonaro was someone who's against the United States establishment. Like, bro, Bolsonaro is a fucking capitalist goon who's pro-Israel. Fuck y'all talking about. And Fiorella was also calling this out as well. When Lula is far from perfect, you guys got to realize if you're a Brazilian and Mexican president, you have to work with the United States in some capacity. Your economy literally relies on it. You're in the hemisphere of one of the most powerful empires of all time. Mexican presidents and Brazilian presidents are supposed to and have to be nice to the United States by nature. Lula, in the way he speaks out against the United States and AMLO too, in a way that South American leaders never have done. The ones who do get killed, you know what I mean? So Lula is not perfect, but people got to understand these nuances in politics. When it comes to resisting empire, he's advocating for the expansion of BRICS. Bolsonaro was slowing it down. Like, the expansion of BRICS is the biggest threat to U.S. empire. And this is what Lula wanted. He was the one who created BRICS. Like, people need to understand that he's not perfect, but he's been a fantastic leader against the United States regime. And people that believe, and I've seen a lot of people that say he's a tool of the United States empire, based on what? Him calling for lifting the Cuban embargo? Him calling out the Ukraine war? Him calling out Israel? Where's the puppet? You know, where the puppet angle coming from? It's still like he's doing everything the United States don't want him to do. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's just a tangent on this tweet because there's a big Zionist element in Brazil, and this is my point I wanted to make, which is why it's risky for Lula to take these positions. Bolsonaro and the bourgeoisie in Brazil are extremely pro-Israel. These are the same people who hate Lula. These are the same media companies that run anti-Lula ads all the time. They attack Lula. Anyway, so the point I'm making is not like a political given for Lula to be pro-Israel. He just is because it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Because he talked about how all the Brazilian press is owned by Zionist families. A coordinated defamation campaign is underway. Oh, Jesus Christ, I bet it is. There had been even a request for impeachment to remove him from power through a coup. I have not read about that. That's crazy. I'm gonna read. I know you gotta get out of here, Rob, but I'm gonna read. We only have a few more here. Then we get out here. Thank you for the 999, John. The Western PMCs like Maddow, Stewart, and Sanders are projecting the unrecognized perpetrator trauma of the United States onto Russia, North Korea, and Palestine. Absolutely. John always leave great super chats. You guys' super chats are very thought-provoking. That's why it always lead to me ranting. Then for $5, gangrene. Is it a genocide? Is it not? Sounds like a repeat of the debate under Bill Clinton over the Rwanda genocide. Absolutely. I've seen the video. I don't have time to show you guys. With the same argument denying the Rwanda genocide sounds exactly like what we hear in Gaza. Surprise, surprise. I might show you guys that video one day. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, Robert. We almost done.
Just look how that take aged.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Gaza thing's going to age just as poorly, if not faster.
Yeah, well said. I'm done with Bernie and his ilk, genocide deniers. Absolutely same here. Another one from ARJ. Bernie, we need to stop terrible things, which has a name I can't say, but not with any actions that can stop it like BDS. You guys see the contradictions of these people? They insult me, man. It's insulting to hear their ideology, honestly. Another one for John. I appreciate all the super chats tonight. A lot of them came in late, so I appreciate the support. I think for the 999, John, liberal baby boomer humanism is crashing and burning. Well said. And we have one more solidarity super chat, a super sticker here from Billy. I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking in with me, Robert. It was great to have you back on. We had you on a lot in the early days. It's been a while, so it's good to hear from you once again. Where can they find you? Anything you want to plug and promote? I love the citizen journalism that you do, so thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, you can finally find me on Rumble, Rockfin, and YouTube, but I don't use YouTube very much. I got like 9 strikes from my old stuff on COVID, so they've crippled my YouTube channel. So Rumble is where I mostly upload nowadays.
And your takes on COVID age amazingly, by the way.
Yeah, I was right on a lot of stuff, man. And remember, I'm a doctor. Like, I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and I have a biomedical sciences degree. So all the stuff I was talking about ended up being true, and they crippled my YouTube channel. So mostly I'm on Rumble nowadays, a little bit on Rockfin. And if I may, I'd like to ask everybody, if you can, with Julian Assange, we may know by tomorrow whether or not he's going to be extradited to the United States. If you can do your due diligence tomorrow at some point, if you're in the US, call your congressman and ask them to sign on to House Resolution 934. I believe that number is 202-224-3121. You can actually go look it up and just, say the name of your congressman. If you can just tell them, sign on to that House Resolution 934, which is dropping all the charges against Julian Assange, I would really appreciate it. I did that today. I'm going to probably call him again tomorrow. So that's my plug. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, well said, man. And with that said, I'm gonna plug this, man, because I'm gonna have my our friends at Do Dissonance. We got another banger in store for Thursday. We had a banger today. We got our friends at Do Dissonance who will be joining me on Thursday. And by the time Nick and I on Thursday, we're gonna know what's going on with Julian Assange. You know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna be talking about. Do Dissonance is killing the fucking game, man.
Yeah, they are.
They are fucking killing it. And now you have Russell traveled to London and attended and covered the Julian Assange protest. Like they're doing, Do Distance is doing amazing citizen journalism. Our post-duopoly brothers. And big shout out to this guy. What's his name? I want to give him a shout out because we found an RBN supporter in the wild. Russell did. So this is gonna be the outro video. This is not like a real segment. But big fucking shout out to this guy. You guys see, my man had a fucking RBN hoodie out here. My man got an RBN. We got people representing RBN in London, my friends. And now, if you don't know, you can check out our merch. This is our merch store. I have the red hoodie. You guys see me wear a few times. This is the hoodie you guys see our boy got. You know what I mean? You love to see it. So this is going to be our outro video. I'll pop you out. Thanks for joining us once again, Robert, and your time. I'll reach out. We have you back on here on Nick at Night. But I'm going to use it as an outro video. Great work for Do Distance. And big shout out to this comrade who has our merch. So this will be our outro video. See you guys on Thursday, my
What's that?
Patreon.
Oh, you're a patron? What's your name?
SMS 17.
All right. Keaton will know that.
Steve, how you doing? All right. I did email you.
Oh, you did?
I said I might be here and I'll pop in and say hi.
All right. Oh, look at the shirt. I love it. I love it. He's sporting the Revolutionary Blackout Network, man. Our friends at RBN.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send this over to Nick and CJ, man. They'll love that.
Yeah. Hopefully, you're gonna do the broadcast this afternoon, are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're doing the patron thing. You can stand right next to me and call in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I haven't exactly got the phone to call in. I'm a bit of an old boy, but
Oh, what? Hang on. Let me. That is. You're like a time traveler with that.
I don't like getting my data out there. You know what I mean?
So what brings you out here for Assange?
I've travelled up this morning from Devon.
Okay.
So just to come up, support Julian, show a bit of solidarity. Hopefully they make the right decision, but I'm not convinced they will, unfortunately.
Well, how do you think it's going to end up?
Unfortunately, I think it may end up being extradited. I can't see them changing it somehow. I don't think so.
Well,
I don't trust British justice.
England has been going increasingly conservative, hasn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we do what the USA tells us to do, you know that. We don't mean anything anymore. We just do as we're told.
See, but it seems to me that you all are out ahead of us on attacking freedom of speech.
Trying to attack freedom of speech. There's more laws being passed in Parliament as we speak to curtail freedom of speech in this country.
That's okay. That's what I was reading about. If you must know Michael Schellenberger. He's been covering this. Matt Taibbi's been covering this.
There's a vote tomorrow in Parliament as well to do with restrictions and Palestine in Parliament.
To do restrictions on Palestine?
Yeah, I think to more sanctions tomorrow.
The sanctions against Israel.
Yeah, no. This is more to can't remember exactly what it is, but I'll have to check.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
The vote is supposed to be marching tomorrow. A lot of people are marching over to Westminster tomorrow because of the vote.
All right. Well, we got somebody over here supporting RBN, supporting Due Dissidents, supporting all the shows.
Excellent.
Right? You watching Jimmy too?
Yeah, oh yeah, watch Jimmy.
All right, watching Jimmy. All right, cool.